What is Blackbeard going to do with Saturn now that Devon has stolen his likeness? What's Blackbeard's plan for the frozen Garp? If the Straw Hats find the 4-road poneglyphs, will Blackbeard still be able to reach Laugh-Tale? And finally, what's the deal with the multiple references to Blackbeard being more than one person? Today, I want to talk about Blackbeard, what he's been up to, and the reason why he's been doing these things. When Luffy's fruit was revealed to be a Hito Nomi, something I've been thinking about for a while sort of triggered in me, and I've not really been able to put it down since. For example, Blackbeard mirrors Luffy, right? We saw them eat cherry pie together, cherry being tied to the cherry blossom which represents fate. They're both D-Clan members, and their fruits are the only devil fruits in the series to resemble another fruit so closely, which brings me to my point. Luffy's fruit was revealed to be a Hito Nomi. Blackbeard's fruit looks very similar, and as a character, Blackbeard shares a lot of similarities with Luffy. So, does this mean that Blackbeard has a Hito Nomi too? Our first clue in this direction would be at Drum Island, where Blackbeard was introduced. We still don't know why the Blackbeard pirates turned up to Drum, but we do know that there was a Hito devil fruit on the island around this time, which Chopper ate. Something you might want to remember for later on in the video is that this Hito Nomi was a mushroom, specifically a fly agaric mushroom, which in real life can be lethal but has potent psychedelic properties. In other words, this fruit ties to the mind. Now, we don't know for sure that Blackbeard went to Drum for Chopper's fruit, but there is another clue similar that makes things get stranger. Blackbeard went to Impel Down, where he recruited Samwon Wolf. Samwon Wolf is an enormous giant, known as Colossal Battleship for his size, and he has a devil fruit that we know changes his size. However, we don't actually know the name of his fruit, which could mean Blackbeard went to Impel Down to gain another Hito Nomi. It might sound like a stretch, but consider the fact every Hito user in the story so far has made a point of changing their size, from Luffy to Sengoku to Onimaru. Even Joy Boy had a giant straw hat, and he also likely had the Gomu, right? What happened when Blackbeard appeared at Marineford? He was attacked by Sengoku in his Hito form. Readers think Blackbeard will be heading to Wano soon, so this also begs the question, will Blackbeard fight the deity protector of Wano, Onimaru, another Hito user? But who cares if Blackbeard is a Hito or not? What does it matter? Well, it matters to the One Piece world, and here's why. As we mentioned earlier, Luffy's fruit was revealed to be the sun god Nika fruit. Onimaru is a 9-tailed fox deity. Sengoku can turn into a golden Buddha, another form of deity. And of course, Joy Boy is often talked about in reference to gods or devils. So if Blackbeard's Yami Nomi, that looks very similar to Luffy's sun god Nika fruit, is a Hito, does this mean Blackbeard is a deity, aka a god too? Many have speculated about Blackbeard being the Earth God, particularly considering he has Whitebeard's Guru Nomi, and others have suggested Blackbeard is the Moon God. Okay, so first it's important to understand that Blackbeard and Luffy are two sides of the same coin, by which I mean they both represent the dawn. Luffy is the dawn of the sun, Blackbeard is the dawn of the moon. We know this with Luffy because, for one example, Luffy has the Sun God fruit. We know this about Blackbeard because of his backstory, which, even though it's limited, tells us the story of a sad, parentless child. The consequences of Imu's way of doing things and global control is war-torn orphans, as I've often discussed in many previous videos, embodied by Oda through lamb imagery. For example, we have Lamb's house full of unwanted orphans. Our protagonist and his two Sakazuki brothers, Ace and Sabo, their parents were either, unalived or absent, and also Enel, for example, described the weak as lambs in Skypiea. Notably, when Marco talks about Whitebeard's flashback, we see this image which seems to be a depiction of Xebec, in the exact same pose as Blackbeard. Anywho, point is, Blackbeard's childhood likely sucked, and now he's pissed and he wants to destroy the world. And that's the change that he embodies, which is a product of Imu's moon era. This is in contrast to Luffy, who as the sun represents rebirth and freedom. Okay, so both characters are two halves of a greater whole. One that wants to rebirth the sun era, and the other wanting to stagnate the moon era. Blackbeard's original devil fruit, the Yami Yami, literally translates to dark dark, which contrasts the light of the sun. While Luffy's Nika fruit seems to give Luffy any power he wants, as well as even giving other people powers, potentially, such as Bonnie and Egghead, Blackbeard's nullifies devil fruits. Naturally, fruit grows in sunlight, but not in darkness, so thematically this fits very well. As you can see, while the characters do reflect each other, they also contrast in many ways too. Just look at the difference at reactions between Blackbeard getting the Gura Gura Nomi and Luffy awakening the Sun God fruit, for example. The sun symbolizes creation, and Blackbeard's agenda is for complete destruction. Theorists have been connecting Blackbeard to Xebec for years, and it just so happens that Xebec and the island he died on was destroyed or disappeared, perhaps suggesting the Yami fruit can literally make whole islands disappear. Moving islands in One Piece is not exactly a new idea, as we saw with Onigashima, for example. Blackbeard's fruit also relates to gravity, particularly through his attacks. Remember how Luffy has the natural ability to draw people towards him. This is reminiscent of the gravity of Blackbeard's devil fruit, but we know natural abilities such as Haki always trumps devil fruits. This tells us that Luffy is fundamentally more powerful than Blackbeard because Luffy has a natural trait of attracting people, but Blackbeard needs to force the attraction, as I said, through his devil fruit. Notably, Emu also forces people to follow him or her, but by using force. Now, Blackbeard doesn't just have one devil fruit, he has two. It will be interesting to see how Luffy deals with this, or perhaps it will be a case where Oda gives Luffy another fruit or another power, which I get the feeling some people wouldn't like too much. Anywho, let's look at how Blackbeard has two devil fruits, when usually it would make you explode according to the Cypher Pole agent Kinder Bueno. We start with the classic panel in chapter 225 featuring Luffy and Zoro, where they refer to Blackbeard as they. Now, although there's some debate about the exact translation, what's important here is the quote in Japanese and English both allude to the fact that Blackbeard is more than one person. We can't say Luffy and Zoro were referring to a group of people because Luffy says it's not he, identifying Blackbeard specifically. So Oda has clearly made a point of the two main characters referring to Blackbeard as more than one person. At Marineford, Marco says that Blackbeard may be able to have two devil fruits because he has a strange body. There is another eerie quote about Blackbeard from Ace which evokes a similar vibe. Ace says, "Let's skip the pointless act, Teach. You've been around twice as long. You know what my being here means." And Oda explained this doesn't mean twice as long as Ace, but rather than twice as long as anybody. This could be a reference to the fact that Blackbeard never sleeps, perhaps suggesting when Blackbeard becomes unconscious, his alternate personality takes over. This resonates strongly with Cavendish, who falls asleep once Hakuba's finished possessing him, and also with Big Mom, who falls asleep after her devastating mood swings. This actually ties into the core theme of the story surrounding dreams, as without sleep you cannot dream. So let's look at why Oda is alluding to Blackbeard being multiple people. First, we ask, are there any examples of multiple people being inside somebody anywhere else in the story? The answer is yes. Firstly, Big Mom supposedly ate Mother Carmel, which we infer from Big Mom's flashback after Mother Carmel's picture frame broke. We confirm this by seeing Big Mom now has Mother Carmel's soul fruit. When Big Mom ate Carmel, the event was witnessed by Stroizen, a character that can turn objects into food. Oda even depicted Stroizen as cutting a log from a tree and turning it into meat at the exact same time, subtly evoking living things can be turned into food. Then when Mother Carmel's portrait in the frame is broken, like I said, Big Mom has memories of Carmel's past, indicating Carmel is still inside Big Mom in some way. Wapol also ate his subordinates and turned into a combination of three people. Now Wapol is no longer a he, but a they. Bear in mind that at Marineford, Blackbeard literally covered himself with a sheet when he took Whitebeard's fruit, pretty much directly telling us there is some physical process happening that is involved in absorbing someone's devil fruit. Interestingly, we didn't actually see Big Mom eating Carmel, just as we didn't see Blackbeard with Whitebeard under the sheet, so maybe there's something more to this specific physical act. Emu is heavily speculated to inhabit Lily Nefertari's body, or some other version of this, which could be another example of two people inhabiting one body. Finally, we have Cavendish, who is pretty much the instruction manual on how possession works, so possession is already well established in One Piece. Shanks went to Whitebeard and specifically warned him about Blackbeard being a threat, telling the reader Shanks knows something is strange about Teach. Shanks knows this explicitly since he has 3 scars across his eye, caused by Blackbeard pre-Yami. Yes, not only did he scar Shanks, but it was pre-Devil Fruit. Shanks and Blackbeard actually have a much deeper connection, however. If Blackbeard is more than one person, then why would that not be detectable to people like Whitebeard, Sengoku, and even his current crewmates? Well, there is something strange about this. We see at the bottom of this page 3 faces side by side, which are Ace, Shanks, and Luffy. All 3 of these have explicitly hinted at Blackbeard being more than one person. By the end of the story, all 3 would have fought Blackbeard, with at least 2 of them losing to him. Marco also fought Blackbeard, and he mentioned Blackbeard's unique body, so for some reason there seems to be a connection between fighting Blackbeard and detecting something weird about him, suggesting that when Law returns into the story, he'll have something similar to say. Now back to Shanks' scar. The scar has 3 lacerations. 3, so this sets us down the path of Blackbeard's relationship with the number 3, as well as the number 8. Blackbeard carries 3 pistols, his Jolly Roger has 3 skulls and 8 crossbones. He debuted in chapter 223 with 3 missing teeth at the age of 38, and his birthday is 8-3. His bounty is in the 3 billions, and he's 344 centimeters tall, or 11 foot 3. 344 makes 3-8, and 11 foot 3 is 11 minus 3, which equals 8. Additionally, Blackbeard has 2 devil fruits and seems to be able to transfer another, suggesting that somehow he has 3 inventory slots for devil fruits. A lot of readers might not know this, but Blackbeard also has 3 immediate relatives, which is his mother and 2 sisters, Oda's drawing for which were published in One Piece magazine 8. Cool side note, the girls actually have Nami's nose, and Blackbeard calls Nami sister on the page that I was talking about earlier. Now, for the most important tie to the numbers 3 and 8, one of the most underrated pieces of lore in One Piece is that the God Valley incident happened 38 years ago, which pretty much directly tells us Blackbeard is tied to the event that took place there involving Xebec. Now, when Whitebeard found Blackbeard for the first time, what did we see? We saw Blackbeard crying, aka unhappy, and that he was alone, aka no sisters or mother. This seems to perfectly match Whitebeard's flashback, where we see this character which looks like a depiction of Xebec in the exact same pose as Blackbeard, while Marco talks about war-torn orphans. So from this, we can speculate that Oda is showing us that Blackbeard and Xebec had a similar childhood. Xebec died, or at least disappeared, at God Valley, which the world government positioned as a huge victory at the hands of Garp, who's subsequently dubbed the hero of the Marines. We know how the world government like to use propaganda to twist the truth, so this definitely might not be true. The island also disappeared along with Xebec, potentially indicating that the disappearance was somehow tied to the Yami Yami, as we know that fruit can suck things up and make them disappear. We mentioned Shanks earlier and his connection to Blackbeard, and Shanks was found at God Valley by Roger. Not only that, but both are born within months of each other, and while Blackbeard's birthday is 8-3, Shanks is 3-9, so we can see Oda is connecting the two subtly. So if Roger unexpectedly found Shanks at God Valley, would it not make sense that Roger's counterpart Xebec would find Shanks' counterpart Blackbeard in a similar way? Again, Sengoku told us Xebec died at God Valley, but as we know, in One Piece, death isn't always as simple as it seems. Hiriluk's last words before sacrificing himself were, "When do you think people die? When they are forgotten." Hiriluk discovered a special cure in the same sea as God Valley in the exact same year, but the details are still left a mystery. So Hiriluk potentially saw something strange at God Valley involving sacrifice, and something then inspired him to sacrifice his life later at Drum. Hiriluk's final words also tells us that that person lived on through someone's memory. Blackbeard's ship is called the Saber of Xebec, so Teach certainly reveres Xebec's memory. Blackbeard seemed to know who Whitebeard was, even as a child somehow. He also knew about the Yami fruit, so there's definitely evidence suggesting Blackbeard has some of Xebec's memories. So does this mean that Xebec secretly lives on just through Blackbeard? This all immediately pops up as a huge red flag. The reason for this is because Oda has been expressing this exact same idea with the main antagonist in One Piece, Emu. Many readers speculate sacrifice, memory, and immortality are key to Emu's character, so it seems like we are on the right track here. From this, we can imagine that Xebec was going to die at God Valley, and to ensure his soul continues on, he somehow passed down his will directly into Blackbeard, meaning Blackbeard didn't get his fruit like Big Mum did with Carmel, but instead just his will, so his memories and his emotions, etc., reflecting the theme of inherited will in One Piece. But how did Xebec do this? Well, we have seen a character remove an intangible part of somebody and make it tangible so it can be manipulated. Bingo. Kuma's fruit. Kuma's fruit was found where? At God Valley. What can Blackbeard's fruit do? Absorb powers on contact. What does an awakening allow a user to do? Usually use powers at range that otherwise would require contact. So it's very likely Xebec arrived at God Valley, and by way of his devil fruit, he absorbed all the abilities of the prizes that were offered at the God Valley event. This is what made him so hard to beat. Now, equipped with the ability of the purple fruit, he removes his will and places it inside baby Blackbeard. He is then unalived by Garp, and his fruit reincarnates elsewhere. Remember that we got the information about the God Valley incident via Kuma's flashback, and it's Bonnie, Kuma's surrogate daughter, that learns about Kuma's past through a huge memory bubble. So the idea that Xebec put his memories and his will into a 1-year-old Blackbeard using the ability of the pawpaw fruit seems to fit many different angles. But that is not all. It gets way spicier. I just said Xebec was unalived by Garp. Let that sink in for a second. Look at Garp, now look at Xebec, now look at this unfortunate dude in Impel Down, now look at Xebec again, now look at Garp. Remember, I just spoke about memories such as Xebec and Blackbeard, but also Bonnie getting the memories of her father. Some speculate Blackbeard is a buccaneer, which would connect this even deeper. But the point I'm making is, if Xebec did impart some of his will and memories into Blackbeard, then this is foreshadowing that Blackbeard will do the same again, and impart Xebec's will into someone else. Did you know Oda mentioned Garp might have an alter ego in SBS 59? Garp's scar disappears no less than 25 times throughout the story. Mistake by Oda? No way. So, do Garp and Xebec share some deeper connection that ties into all this? Jumping straight into it, unlike almost every other character in the series, Garp has 2 laughs, not 1. Very suspicious, as we know laughs are distinct to every person in One Piece, and expresses some part of their character. The only other character with 2 laughs is Mihawk. Garp was a pirate in Romance Dawn, and obviously Xebec is a pirate. You could argue Garp has a pirate nature as a member of Sword, which is effectively a marine that's free to do as they please, or as it's known in the One Piece world, a pirate. In the anime, Garp overheard Sabo, Ace, and Luffy boasting of their dreams to become pirates, leaving him infuriated. Garp then chases them out into the night, breaking down trees and rocks and beating them all to a pulp. Sabo exclaimed that he was a monster, and afterwards he casually leaves them, saying he will not be so merciful next time. Now, this all sounds to me like it would fit the description of Xebec that Sengoku gave us. He also described the Rocks Pirates as a crew that bred the next 3 Yonkos. So Xebec has great talent as an instructor, much like Garp, who taught Ace, Sabo, and Luffy, which is again 3 students. We often see Garp with his mouth wide open laughing, and it is reminiscent of the shadows that we've been seeing of Xebec. The more I look at this particular one, the more it makes me think. Rocks looks like Dragon a lot, going by the silhouette, and of course, Dragon is related to Garp. In chapter 1109, we saw Xebec's crew treats their captain the way the Straw Hats treat Luffy, which is a member of the Monkey Clan. Xebec's resemblance to Dragon is uncanny, suggesting he too was potentially a Monkey family member. No one could stop Rocks in the Marines except for Monkey D. Garp, so there again we have this eerie connection. Garp pretty much sacrificed himself, allowing for his prodigy Kobe to become the hero of Marines. This could reflect God Valley, with Xebec sacrificing himself for Garp's sake. Characters' attributes such as heights can sometimes give us a clue too. For example, Garp is 9'5", and Xebec was introduced in 957 and episode 958. Xebec is the name of a ship with an outstretched bow, and pre-time skip, Kobe explicitly states, "Look at this pirate ship's bow," when looking at Garp's ship. So what can all these ties mean? Why would Oda intentionally not draw Garp's scar in many of the panels? One Piece theorist Cube of the Red Sea has been preaching for years that Garp will become Xebec, and the evidence is starting to add up. This brings me on to why Oda had Katarina Devon take Saturn's likeness and how it adds to Blackbeard's crew. While Blackbeard does have a mysterious wealth of knowledge, he has also been shown to not know everything. We just saw an entire arc dedicated to science, and within that arc we are shown all sorts of examples of clones, such as satellites, Stussy, Kuma, etc, etc. If I had to take a guess, I'm thinking it would be possible that through Saturn, maybe Blackbeard can learn some more of what's needed to turn a frozen Garp into an alive Xebec. Is there any evidence that suggests Saturn would know about these kind of issues? Well, yes, actually, Boa and her two sisters were experimented on to give them devil fruits, but we come across a myth that says these three powers were the powers of a Gorgon. This ties to Blackbeard because not only did he go to Amazon Lily specifically for one of these devil fruits, he's also heavily tied to the number 3. In other words, if Saturn was trying to recreate or pass on the Gorgon's will through his experiments, then this might be the information Blackbeard needs to be able to recreate the procedure and revive Xebec. Blackbeard has Puddin. This means he can use her abilities to look into Garp's memories, giving him an even better insight into what happened with Xebec. Moria was also a prisoner of Hachinosu, and he can revive the dead. Now, Carmel said that she would retire after one big score, but her life was ended prematurely by Big Mum, who ate her. She then joins Xebec's crew, and Xebec subsequently goes to God Valley, which according to Sengoku was also for one big score. I've talked before about this one big score being the crown jewel of Hachinosu, which I believe is now the treasure Buggy is looking for. This treasure is said to be under an island with a skull in it, and since the fall of Onigashima, that leaves Hachinosu. I won't go into details here, but this feeds into the theories that Buggy is connected to Xebec, as talked about by sniper theorist GT. So what am I getting at here? Well, when you combine all these elements, it could suggest that the crown jewel that was taken from Hachinosu was actually a dead body, perhaps even Joy Boy's body. As the Pirate King, the title Crown Jewel fits this well. After all, Joy Boy has deep ties to Elbaf, and that's where Carmel found her one big score, and could even be the reason she was sent to infiltrate the Giants by the world government to begin with. Carmel started 13 years before Dory and Broggy left Elbaf, so if Carmel had managed to find the one big score and displace it, this might be the reason Dory and Broggy left in the first place, right, to find this thing that had been stolen. So perhaps Xebec took the body from Elbaf, using Big Mum's inherited knowledge of where it was, which fits the whole theme of inherited will. He probably hid it at Pirate Island, which leads to the stories that Buggy reads saying the treasure is under an island with a skull in it. From there, though, we know through Garp that it was then stolen by the world government. Garp implied it was obvious Xebec would go to God Valley to retrieve the crown jewel, so whatever it was seems to be tied to Xebec's plan to go to God Valley, enough so that he risked his life at God Valley to go and get it and paid the ultimate price. It could be that Xebec had a similar plan to Blackbeard and was going to uncover the true history through a dead person's memory, hence why the government painted him as an evil threat, because we know that they don't want anything about Joy Boy being uncovered, right? All of this comes together well and is tied neatly by the trivia that Oda gave us about Blackbeard's hobby studying history. So, do you think Blackbeard is going to use everything he's learned from the Yami Yami, the Gura Gura, and Garp to revive and set Xebec free? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but that's enough for one day. Make sure you're subbed for the Christmas special, where we make a case that it's not just coincidence that after Nolan cut the head off the snake, he had his own head cut off. If you've made it this far, you've just won a stylish Nudgero wig for Christmas, but until next time, toodle pip.